I'm Steph.
And I'm Drew.
And you're listening to Spirited Spirits.
All right, guys, good evening. This is Drew and Steph. So we're doing something a little different tonight. We're going to have more of a conversational topic about why we as a society like scary movies or horror films.
Well, and why we also personally like scary movies.
Yes, that too.
We just wanted to, after the one that we came off of, the
Girl Scout murders.
Maybe
a little something lighter.
Well, and I have, there's one that I'm going to be researching on. It's going to take some time. So we just kind of wanted to do more of a quote-unquote lighthearted
Right.
episode, too, where we could just kind of shoot the shit for a little bit. And
Yeah. So you want to talk about what we're drinking? Because you made an excellent drink tonight.
Thank you. Well, I can't claim credit for this. I found it on Pinterest. It's called the Campfire Old Fashioned. So we got some Maker's Mark bourbon, and it calls for 2 ounces of bourbon. It calls for a half an ounce of marshmallow syrup, which sounds really complicated, but it's really not. It's actually, it made a huge batch, but if you do half a cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, and then you put in 4 marshmallows, which I ended up doubling because it had said just for 1 cocktail, but
Okay.
look how much it made.
It made a lot.
So just do half a cup of water, and 1 cup of sugar with 4 marshmallows on the stove, kind of boil it up so everything kind of dissolves, and then you strain it over a sieve to get all the foaminess off. So you do the 2 ounces of bourbon, the half ounce of the marshmallow syrup you create, and then we found agnostic cocoa bitters. So you do a few dashes
It's
of
not
that.
agnostic. It's It's
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right. Angostura.
It's not like it
Why
doesn't
did I always
believe
think
in
it was
God.
agnostic? Fuck you. Anyway. Okay, whatever. It's the bitter shit, and it's cocoa flavored bitters. So it's like a s'mores kind of.
Yeah.
It's like a bourbon, old fashioned s'mores. So I'm not a big put ice in bourbon girl. So we use these glow ice cubes we got in Disney World. And It gives a red glow like a fire, but you also can put with toothpicks a marshmallow on top, and you light it on fire. So we're going to post the picture on Instagram. So take a look at that and see what you think. We'll post the recipe as well. But we just wanted to kind of do something fun as as we're getting into the dog days of summer, kids are going back to school. Things are starting to get chaotic again. And so we wanted to just do a fun cocktail kind of commemorating, to me, the end of summer. I mean, because I'm looking forward to fall, right?
And let's be honest, we watch horror movies all the time. So it's not like it's...
Yeah.
So, Steph, let me ask you this. Why do you like scary movies?
So I think I like scary movies for multiple reasons. I've been watching scary movies since I was 3 years old.
Pretty early on.
Thanks to my dad. For those listeners who've been, with us for a while, I've talked about how my dad showed me Child's Play when I was 3 because he was babysitting me at night and he wanted to watch it, and he told me it was a happy little movie about a boy and his doll. And then my mom came home from work, and I looked at her, and she goes, "Baby, why are you still up?" And I said, "Hey, Mommy, don't fuck with Chuck." I was 3. So the fact that my dad is still alive is a miracle.
Yeah.
So I've been watching scary movies for so long. I mean, we used to watch them at slumber parties. So there's this sense of nostalgia. Just my childhood was scary movies.
Right.
And it's fun. It's exciting. um, it's just like this. You feel more alive watching them. It's like,
what do you mean by that? Like, what feels more alive when you watch it? Because, again, I feel like we've watched so many horror movies like for so long that I want to know what's the feeling that you're getting when you're watching it.
Well, so I just feel like you get this, like, your heart starts pounding. You know, you're like, oh my gosh, you're like hoping the character lives, or maybe you hope they die. I don't know, but it's like, it makes you grateful that you're alive and you're not going through the same situation.
Right.
But then there's also this little bit of fear in you that maybe it could happen. Like, depending on which horror movie you're watching, like, if you believe in, like, supernatural stuff, or if you believe in, like, even serial killer and, like, true crime or spooky kind of horror movies that are more slasher based. So I don't know. It's just like, it's just, and it's also, like, just a break from reality. Like, I realize the world is complicated and there's a lot of scary shit going on. But, like, at least I don't have, like, a slasher, like a psycho killer chasing after me with a hockey mask and a... Right? I mean, I don't know. It's just been one of those things that I've always... And even though it terrified me, I used to have nightmares, like, every time... Like, the first time I saw Return of the Living Dead when I was in 4th or 5th grade at a slumber party, and I had nightmares, and I don't know, there's just something about it. It just gets your heart racing, and it's thrilling. It's a thrilling experience.
So, when I think about horror movies and kind of why I watch them, and because I feel like we gravitate to horror movies all year round. And when I was picking this topic, it's like, why do we do that? Why do we... And I think it's fun to watch people in situations where you couldn't imagine yourself in them, but you're also putting yourselves in their shoes.
Right.
Like, what would you do? Maybe the same, maybe differently. Like, we always say there's that, quintessential teen that, dumb blonde teen that's running away from a serial killer that runs upstairs instead of going outside the door.
Right.
And those type of things. Like, what would you do differently?
And so in that moment,
and I'm not saying anything against blondes or anything, but I mean,
I used to be a blonde.
Yeah, quintessentially in the 80s when there was a person that was going to be fodder for a serial killer, it was usually the big boobed blonde archetype of a woman that was running away from the serial killer.
Who wasn't a virgin. Like, in Scream, they discussed that. Right.
So I think, a lot of times, like, you watch horror movies, like, you yell at the screen, you're like, oh my God, do this differently, or like, go this way, go that way. You kind of get into it. But nowadays we don't do that. We're not like yelling at the screen, like, go this way, do that. But I think there's something about watching somebody in a situation that you're not usually in, and how you would do things differently or the same.
Well, and so there's also you have, especially these horror franchises. So you have, like, Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, and you have Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th. That after a while, it's like you don't even give a shit about the people who are trying to survive. In some ways, it's almost psychotic, because you start like enjoying the thrill of watching Jason kill another dumb teenager.
Well, I think that was the thing that about those specific things, those movies in general, was that, at that point, those characters aren't even characters anymore. They're just kind of like, sheep led to slaughter.
Right.
And the thing you're looking at for those movies is the interesting kills.
Right.
So in the Jason films, what's fun about those is those characters. I mean, my favorite one is the fourth one.
Yeah, which kill is your favorite?
So, but the thing is, though, is my favorite kill, though, is the sleeping bag one. And that one's not in the fourth one.
That's not in the fourth one, okay.
So, but the thing is, though, is with those movies specifically, it's about Jason or Freddy and the creative way of doing the practical effects and what you're watching versus, I'm rooting for this person, because it gets kind of convoluted and dumb as you go through, because in like Friday the 13th there's actually a part where there's a psychic battle between
Jason. Is that the fifth one, or
that's the seventh?
Oh one? Gosh, okay.
Yeah, where it's the psychic battle between the girl and
that's
Jason.
Right. That's right.
So like it gets stupid, but it's fun to watch because can be stupid. Mm-hmm. Though that's like an 80s horror movie with like those specifically.
And what about more modern day horror movies? I mean,
well, we're definitely
we're trying to be more smart, I think.
We're definitely in the renaissance of elevated horror, mm-hmm. which means that we have something to say about,
there's
society.
Social commentary. Well, I think it's always been social commentary.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking back at Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
I mean, that was a huge social commentary with
George Romero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we look like now with movies like Get Out with Jordan Peele.
Oh, I love him. And, I love Jordan Peele.
Us, and, he's brilliant.
Yes.
And so those more elevated horrors, like even like Hereditary.
Yeah.
And things that talk about like family dynamics, racism.
The horror of family
yeah, the horrors of racism.
Yeah.
The new Candyman speaks. I mean, the old
oh my
Candyman
God, I love the new Candyman.
But the new one speaks more into like police brutality and those things.
I really love the old Candyman, but the new one he did really. I mean, Jordan Peele did a fantastic job on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's great.
And just the way he uses music to kind of set the mood, or like,
yeah,
he did that with Us too. I put 5 on it.
Yeah, well, he does that song.
Yeah,
and then in that one, but there's
say my name. That was the one in the trailer, right? But he slowed it down and made it spookier for Candyman.
Oh yes,
because you say Candyman's name. Say my name.
Yes.
Okay. So so we kind of went off on a tangent there. So circling back, Drew, what was the first scary movie you saw? Because I know you didn't start as early as I did. You weren't allowed to watch horror movies.
I was not allowed to watch horror movies for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really started my watching of horror movies as much as I did until I met you.
Yeah.
You definitely
corrupted you.
You definitely corrupted me on that. I would say the first horror movie, and this is like 80s PG horror, was probably Poltergeist.
Okay.
And I remember watching it with my parents and being completely terrified. They told me, "Oh, it's scary, but it's not that scary." And I remember thinking, okay, like, it's Steven Spielberg. I love E.T., and I'm sure it's just going to be just like that. Oh boy, was I wrong. I remember specifically watching that movie and being scared, but then the small boy gets eaten by a fucking tree. And that was a part where I was like, turn it off. And I went to bed. I was terrified. And full disclosure, like, my mother had to sleep on the trundle bed for like a week because I was terrified of that movie. And it wasn't for a very long time that I ended up watching it again. So I think that was the first one. But my first memory of a horror movie was when my sister was babysitting me. And I was pretty little. Mm-hmm. And she had put me to bed, but I had snuck out of my bedroom. And I had snuck downstairs, and she was either watching the movie or the trailer to Child's Play 2. Okay. And all I saw was Chucky shove a sock in Andy's mouth. Freaked out, ran upstairs, didn't say anything, so she didn't know I was there. But then I crawled into bed, and the light under my closet was on.
Uh-oh.
And there was 2 feet underneath the light.
And you thought it was Chucky.
And I screamed. And when she came up and opened the closet door, it was like one of my stuffed animals that I had shoved in there and just forgot to turn the light off.
Yeah, so when I saw Child's Play, I also was traumatized. So I had a doll. I think it was like the Penelope doll or something. My mom would know better than me, but there was this doll that I had, and it scared I was scared it was going to come to life, just like the Chucky doll. Mm-hmm. And I would stick her in the closet, and my mom would find Penelope and be like, why do you have Penelope in here? Don't you want to snuggle with her tonight? And I was like, no, because I was convinced that Penelope was going to come after me like Chucky did.
Right.
And I remember, so I think Child's Play was one of the first, but I also remember at some point watching Tales from the Crypt on HBO Max, or sorry, I guess it wasn't HBO Max then, it was just HBO. And now it's just the Max. I can't keep up with the shit.
Yeah.
But HBO back in the day, I think my parents had it, and Tales from the Crypt, I remember that, the Crypt Keeper. But also, I saw Poltergeist. I think I was around age 5. But I also saw The Exorcist when I was really young.
That's crazy to me. I've known you for so long, and we've been together for a very long time, and that still is crazy to me.
I don't even know how or what. Like, I don't remember. I know for sure my dad showed me Child's Play. I can't recall in my memory why I saw Exorcist. I don't know if my parents had got the tape, like had rented the VHS tape, and I spotted it and was like, "What's this?" I have no idea, but I remember watching it. And
did you watch the whole movie, or did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it scared the actual shit out of me, because I'm from a Christian background. I am a Christian. I am non-denominational, and so the Catholic Church. A little bit of background about me. My dad's Catholic. My mom was Baptist. And so I'd been a couple times to my dad's Catholic church, and it kind of scared the shit out of me with, their little rituals and the burning of incense. And so some of that stuff resonated with me from like the Catholic priest and everything that was happening in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it scared me. And I think, honestly, it was because of that movie that I think I started questioning, like, what's going to happen to me after I die? Like, right. What's going to happen to my soul? So, in some ways, horror movies cause us to kind of think about our own mortality, right. And like what happens when we die and what do we live on. And I think that's a fascinating concept to think about.
Right. I still can't get over the fact, though, that you think that the scariest movie of all time is Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
and not
yeah. Okay, again, I saw Return of the Living Dead at a birthday party. It was my friend's house.
So corny, though.
It doesn't matter. When the particular age and time in which I saw it,
it traumatized you.
It was very, and the fact, the key here is, yes, it's a zombie movie. Yes, it's scary. To me, I know it's supposed to be in some ways kind of like a comedy, but it's the fact that at the end you find out it's Louisville, Kentucky, and they have to blow up Louisville, Kentucky, and even that doesn't actually destroy the zombies, right? It just creates new ones because it creates the acid rain, which then pours down on the cemeteries and creates new zombies. And it's like this cycle of like, it's never going to end. And the fact that it's in my city, which no movies back then took place in Louisville, Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like, right. So it was scary, yes. And I'm at a slumber party with a bunch of 8, 9, 10-year-old girls. However, I think we were 4th, 5th grade, 8, 9 years old. And it was scary.
Right.
And not to mention this friend's house she claimed was haunted and that her dog had, it was just a whole thing. Like, she had a whole... It was a scary slumber party. We also did some like shit from the gate where we started doing light as a feather, stiff as a board, and right. We swear that we caused one of our friends to levitate to the ceiling. It was just one of those nights where we were doing witchcraft and spooky shit. I don't know, but
right. So, one thing that I did look up in preparation for this episode, it's just kind of the discussion of like why do we like scary movies
as a society.
Okay. And so I found a Washington Post article, and it's entitled "Why We Like Scary Things: The Science of Recreational Fear" by Richard Sima, and this is posted in October 27th, 2022.
Okay.
And so he discusses that there is actually a recreational fear lab in Aarhus University in Denmark. And the director of that lab is Matthias Klassen. And so that this quote, he says that having fun with fear is an extremely important tool for learning. We learn something about the dangers of the world. We learn something about our own responses. How does it feel or what does it feel like to be afraid, and how much fear can I take? And that's something that is interesting because it's like, okay, there's something to say, like, what's our stopping point with horror? Like, what is our cutoff with, like, yeah, I'll watch horror movies, but maybe this type of movie is one that I'm not going to watch.
Oh, it's really interesting you say that, because the other day we were talking about what we wanted to watch. We signed up for Shudder, and this is not a promo.
It can be the Shudder.
It can be Shudder. We're here for it if you want to, like, you know.
Yeah. We love horror movies. We have your app. You can be a sponsor on this little podcast.
Yes. So we were kind of looking on there, and we were trying to decide what to watch. And Drew was like, "Hey, let's watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre."
Yeah.
And there's something about that movie I've never really liked. I've watched it.
I think it's the grittiness for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's so many sadistic people in this world. If you think about all the true crime stuff we've covered and not even covered, but I've read about, it feels too real.
But you'll watch...
I almost need more of a supernatural element to make it feel
but there's
less,
some movies that
less
you've
frightening.
watched. There's some movies that you've watched or some documentaries that are pretty, heinous.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know what it is. I don't like that. And, like, I liked the first Saw movie and the second. The second was okay.
Yeah.
But, like, subsequent ones I have no interest in. I never had interest in Hostel. Anytime, any of these, like, torture porn ones.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because we were watching that on Shudder, the countdown
top 100
scariest moments.
Yeah.
But they're talking about the Saw movies and how the first and second one were more of a story about, this guy that was dying that, like, wanted people to feel grateful for their lives.
Being alive, yeah.
And he kind of, like, kidnapped the ones that were the worst and made them feel grateful, or trying to make them feel grateful. But it got away
to change their lives.
Yeah,
like
it got away from that after the second one and just became like torture porn at that point. Which I agree. I mean, like, you don't want to watch those. There's certain movies that I have researched that I know about that I would never watch. Well, and I think it's one of those ones, like, it's the ones that are either... There's one called, I know it's famous, but it's Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's like actual real animals that die. And just knowing that and knowing that that's on screen, I'm like, I don't want to watch that.
No.
And then there's another one that's, that my friend told me about, that he was like, this is my movie that I would never watch. And I'm not going to say it because it doesn't need press. But I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, like, this is awful. Like, this is completely something that I don't want to watch because that doesn't sound at all entertaining to me.
Right.
Which I think with horror movies, even some of the really ones like Texas Chainsaw, you do get some type of entertainment value out of that one.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
I just got a huge gulp of the marshmallow syrup, and it was thick. It was thick.
It's a thick bitch.
Thick. I need more makers.
Okay. So,
I need definitely more makers. That was thick.
So one thing that was interesting about this article, and I didn't even think about this, is that even as babies, we do love some safe scares.
Oh, really?
So if you think about it, anybody listening to the podcast, if you were a parent or an aunt or an uncle, or you have known a baby in your life, I want you to do this. Raise your hand if you ever played peekaboo with a kid. Here's the thing. Peekaboo, according to this article, and I didn't think about this, is an infant jump scare.
Okay.
So that's something that Klassen said. So you think of, like, classic childhood games of tag and hide and go seek. These are simulations of predator versus prey.
Oh.
And so I don't think I've yet come across a person who did not enjoy some kind of recreational fear, he said.
Interesting.
So it's a thought of being afraid, but also knowing you're safe.
Yeah.
Is something that our brains enjoy. So you think of also going to a haunted house.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, I don't like going to haunted houses with you because you fucking pushed me in front of the damn monster. One time we went to
that was one time.
No,
Stephanie.
okay, but that's because I've never gone again with you. We went to Waverly Hills haunted house, like the fake haunted house, because we've also been to the real paranormal experience, which we talked about, I think, in episode 2 or whatever. So we went to the haunted house they had created, and I walked in. There was like this like tunnel, and they were like, "Go on," and Andrew's like, "Go ahead, go ahead, Steph," and I was like, "No." And all of a sudden, this damn monster, I don't even remember, it was probably a clown, because you hate clowns.
I do hate clowns.
And you, like, push me towards the monster.
I don't think I pushed you. I just think I just lightly...
pushed.
lightly caressed you in a way, like, towards the monster.
You were like, fuck you, you're the victim, not me, bitch.
Actually, what I thought, probably at that time...
Out of my way, bitch! What's that meme or whatever? Like, the real...
bitch, get out of the way!
Yes.
No, I actually thought, that you were Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
right.
and you could handle it.
Yeah, that sounds like a likely story. Although I am Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So, going back to the article, because I'm
Yes.
going to keep referencing this, is Klass and his colleagues also identified that there are 3 broad types of horror fans.
Okay.
There's the adrenaline junkies, the white knucklers, and the dark copers.
Ooh.
So which one would you say that you are?
Well, I need more explanation.
Okay. So, adrenaline junkies get a mood boost from the recreational fear experienced and try to maximize that experience, such as being actively focused on scary events or allowing themselves to scream.
Mm.
Okay? When we're afraid, our endocrine system releases adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol to help prepare our body for physical action. So, there's that. Okay?
Okay.
White knucklers try to lean out of the experience by trying to find the situation funny or lessening their exposure to scary stimuli. Not because they do not enjoy the experience, but because people are always trying to hit their sweet spot, he said.
Okay.
So the research, I really am interested in this study.
Of course you are.
I'm super interested.
The psychology of it.
So, because he said that there was research at haunted houses found there's an inverted U pattern, which, by the way, I'm a huge data nerd. A U pattern, I want to see what that looks like.
Okay, move on. I want to hear what this
to how much fear people find enjoyable.
Okay.
Too little fear, it's too boring. Too much, and it produces way too much anxiety than fun.
Okay. But you said there was a dark... Who's the dark...
A dark coper.
Yes, I want to hear about that.
A dark coper, the 3rd type of horror fan, seems to use scary media to help them deal with anxieties about the world.
That is me!
Or their own lives by focusing on more concrete threat.
100%. That is me.
Okay, let me finish. By pinning down what is causing us to feel fear and dread, people can have more control over their emotional state. Over time, by playing with this fear and anxiety, people can empirically learn some emotional regulation skills for how to feel because you're expressing them and feeling them in a safe space.
100%, that's me.
So that
anxiety, check. Control, check. Yep, that's me.
So that's interesting.
Wouldn't you say that's me too?
Oh, hell yes. I read that and I knew it's exactly who that was you.
You were like bearing the lead on that. I was like, tell me about the dark coper.
But I wanted you to figure it out on your own.
But you kept talking about frickin' the other shit. I needed to hear about the dark coper.
But you think about that is people with anxiety, and you have anxiety, and I also do have some anxiety. But if you think about it, feeling in control of your own emotions and what's going on in your life, you feel more control by watching somebody else have an out of control experience, and you're like, oh, I would do things differently.
Yes.
So that's how you have
that
control.
person's a dumbass. I'm smarter than that.
So I'm not anxious because I know what I would do differently.
And if I ever encounter some type of demon or monster, then I'm going to know what to do because I prepared myself by watching so many fucking horror movies.
So here's something really interesting, and I would like to see the data on this too, is that there's evidence that regularly playing with fear can help when real threats arise. At the beginning of the pandemic, horror fans were more psychologically resilient. Playing with fear helped us learn what our bodies do under pressure and how to make it through in one piece whether the stakes are fairly high or fairly low.
Ooh.
So I found that really interesting, that if you were a horror fan in the pandemic, it's almost like the psychology nerd in me is like, I kind of want to do like a study now, like a survey. Say, hey, did you watch horror movies? Like, scale from 1 to 10, what did you do at the beginning of the pandemic, and seeing where that data lies.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting. So that's the end of the article. Like, it then goes into
so if the apocalypse happens, we're prepared.
I mean, depending on what it is, but I'm prepared. There's a part in this that's like how to be scared for fun and like finding your comfort zone. But I think that's neither here or there.
Yeah, we don't need that.
But I found it was that study interesting. So looking at kind of other media, though, you know, we look at scary video games, and this is what I want to talk about: the difference between watching a horror movie and playing a horror video game.
Yes.
And the difference from you.
Well, because it's more interactive.
Yes. So I'll give a perfect example. One of my favorite movies of all time, Aliens. Okay. I own the Alien Isolation game. That game stresses me out more than anything. It gives me anxiety, sweaty pits. I know that's really gross. Like, my palms get sweaty on the controller, and it's because in that game,
you're invested. Like, you're that character.
But it's a first-person perspective.
Right, and every decision you make.
Yes. You can't kill an alien. You're hiding from it.
Yeah.
The alien one-hit kills you, and it can find you. And it's also, they made that alien have almost like artificial intelligence, where it's not on a track in the game. It's free-flowing. It's free-moving throughout the space station. It can drop in any room that you're in. So it gives me anxiety, but it gives me way more anxiety playing that game than watching any movie.
Can I tell a quick aside story?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was like 6, 7 years old, my parents took me to Disney World.
Yeah.
And it was the Great Movie Ride.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that? Okay. Yeah. So on the Great Movie Ride, you would get on this like boat or something. It was like, wasn't it like?
It was a boat ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was like a person that was like, oh, we're going to escape. Remember that they were like your leader on the boat?
Yeah. Okay. That was back when like Disney had more almost like interactive rides with like a cast member telling the story.
So my parents took us, my sister was like 3 or 4 and I was, she was like definitely 3 and I think I was like 7. So we went on that, and then you go through the alien spaceship, like you go through the Nostromo or whatever.
Yeah. And
the alien drops down from the ceiling, and it just happened to fucking drop down right over me. And I see it, and mind you, I've seen Alien at this point at 7 years of age. I've seen Alien 1 and 2, okay?
Yeah, I didn't.
Anyway, I had. Thanks to my parents. Shout out Mom and Dad. So the alien drops down, and I drop to the floor of the boat, and I'm just like, oh my God. And the lady's like, oh man, that alien really seems to like you, little girl. Right. Because it was just in that moment, it dropped down and it scared the shit out of me.
Well, I remember that specific part is they set up the environment before that stuff happens. Like, they have the fog.
They've got the lights and the wah wah.
They have
wah,
the alarm.
Wah, wah.
They have the animatronic of Ripley like holding her rifle against the wall, and she's sweating.
Yes.
And it's very scary.
It's very scary.
And then you have that happen, and it's scary.
So it's that interactive piece. That's why that made me think of it. It's just like you're in that space. You're whether it's a video game or you're on a ride, you feel that anxiety because you're invested, you're in it, and at that moment you're at the mercy of whatever is going to happen.
And it's so funny because I've got 3 really good friends that are like my best friends, and
shout out, do a shout out. Come on.
I'm fine.
Thomas, Sam, and Elliot.
Yeah, and so but I'm kind of like the horror guy of the group.
You are,
but they make fun of me because. With horror games, I'm not. I chicken out.
Well, and they introduced you to the Quarry that we just played recently,
and that's a good one. If you have not heard of the Quarry, we're kind of doing a side here. It's almost like a choose your own adventure movie/video game where you have like a bunch of characters and you have to choose whether
it's like couch co-op or something where
Yeah.
you have to like you have to play several different characters.
and you have to make a decision of what they say, what they do, and these characters
And
can
based
live
on
and
those
die.
decisions,
Yeah.
things happen.
Right. And so there's like 137 endings or something from this game. And Stephanie and I played it.
We played it, but then we also invited my bestie Sarah to play, and
Right.
she did we ever finish with her? No, oh God, she's got to come over and we got to finish that game. But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
So I think the thing is that there's different and going on like horror games, there's now like virtual reality horror games.
Mm-hmm.
And those are a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Just being immersive in it and making those choices. And I think that's the thing that's different is like I can detach myself from a character on screen that's making the choices. But when I have to make the choices and like I'm invested,
it's much more terrifying. Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those things that I think that's what's, if we had to put a situation like a spectrum of scary things, I think scary video games like that scare me more than movies.
Yeah, 100%. The Quarry gave me all kinds of anxiety.
Right. Because if you fuck it up, then your character that you really like dies.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, the first time I played it, I was like, I'm going to play it like I would do it. Like if I was really in this. But then I found that wasn't always the best choice.
Right.
So the second time when we started playing with Sarah, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to do this different.
Right. Because
I'd learned from the first time.
Right.
So yeah, it was fun. Right. It was really fun.
So I think, and as we kind of wind down the summer and we're, ramping up to spooky season.
Yes, bring it on.
So it's just something to think about is like, why do you all like horror movies?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to, do you have anything else to say?
So the only other thing we wanted to talk about is what's your favorite? If you had to boil it down to one favorite horror movie.
You know my answer.
It's so hard. For me, it's so hard, but go ahead.
I mean, I know what
your answer
my favorite is always going to be The Thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why that is because John Carpenter can do no wrong to me. I think he's great.
He is great.
The music is great. The character Kurt Russell is a badass in it. I always find something new when I watch it because you're just trying to track where the alien goes from one thing to the next person and who are they infecting and which one is an imitation and not. So there's always just a little bit more that I get out of it. I think the ending is great.
Mm-hmm.
It ends on a part where you can have a discussion of what you feel like happens.
Well, it's funny though, because then he was said to have, quote unquote, John Carpenter said it was obvious to him.
Yes.
Who, and I'm not going to give it away, but he said it was obvious to him who was the imitation and who was the one who was human.
So I think that's my favorite. Because I feel like, again, we watch it every year in January.
Yes.
But it's always one that I look forward to.
Yeah.
We have the board game and the board game rules. That's another thing we didn't talk about is horror board games.
Oh, we need to do that. We need to definitely talk about horror board games.
So that's another thing, too.
Because even our kiddos had fun with the horror board game.
And that's, again, I think, a safe recreational horror. And I think, again, when it comes down to it, maybe it's, if we had to rank, the scariness.
Yeah.
I guess, movies is... I would say movies is above board games because board games is safe, right?
But again, you're talking about every decision you make, just like a video game. The board game,
think it's different.
No, the Betrayal at House on the Hill that we play a lot because we love it. Every decision you make affects the outcome, and if you don't roll for roll for a haunt and it ends up being.
But if I die, in a board game, my character little thing just turns over. I'm not watching an alien.
But you might then become the deceiver, the one in the haunt.
But I love doing that.
I know. Well, that's ultimately what happens. So we've played with our kiddo, and Drew usually has to be the bad guy, regardless of what.
That's fine. I'm made for that.
It's fine.
But
it's fun. But it's about the decisions you make that ultimately affect what's going to happen.
Right. But
a video game.
Right. And I think with horror board games, though, I think there's a lot in those specific ones that there's a deceiver. There's an element of
betrayer,
a betrayer.
Deceiver, yeah.
Like there's one character, like player, that ends up being the bad guy. So so I would probably rank, like, that's probably the lowest, like the safest. And then it's movies, and then video games. I feel like the ones that are really immersive and like first person, you're like Alien Isolation, are the most stressful to me.
I hear you. It's the visual component.
So what is your favorite? You didn't.
I did, because it's really, really hard. And I've been thinking on this a lot. Because I have so much. There's so much nostalgia. Like there's like nostalgic, things that I want to say. But if I were to choose a movie that I could just watch over and over and over and over again, I don't know if you're going to like my answer.
It's your answer. I can't.
I really love Trick or Treat.
Okay. Yeah.
I really love Trick or Treat. And that's Michael Dougherty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just such a beautiful anthology series.
Well, I think
the
also
way it's all connected.
It's a love letter to Halloween, and you love Halloween.
Thank you. That's exactly how I feel about it. It is. I've always had such a special spot in my heart for Halloween, and it is a love letter to Halloween. It's just the way that it's done. The stories are interwoven in such a beautiful way, and the way that the continuity
it's really good with that.
Done. It's just I really enjoy it. Like, I want to watch it like right now. So I know again it's August, but I can't help it. I'm ready for it to be fall. I've already pulled out some pumpkin things. We bought some pumpkin.
I've noticed. We've
bought some pumpkin candles. And we're burning those tonight. And yeah, I really love that one. Second favorite, I might choose Aliens.
Is that a horror movie?
That's a sci-fi, probably.
That's an action. It's sci-fi.
I call it sci-fi. Well, I mean, it's a horror in the sense that those things are terrifying. Like, xenomorphs are terrifying. But I think for me, it's the Ripley and Newt relationship.
I do like.
And I told our kiddo the other day.
He's like Newt.
He's our Newt. He's my Newt.
So I'm the xenomorph, and you're Ripley.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the. No, you're I don't know. Are you?
Oh, I'm ready. I can't wait to hear this.
I'm obviously Ripley, and then Newt.
So who am I?
You are.
Waiting. I'm so ready for this. What is it?
What's the guy that she likes for Hicks? A minute? You're Hicks. You're Hicks. Congratulations.
I help you with that one. I would say another one that I would say is one of my favorites. That I feel like when we talk about rewatchability, it's probably the original Scream. I do love that one, and I think it's because of like the meta, like the stuff with Randy and like following the rules of a horror movie, and those type of things.
Yeah.
All right, so listeners,
what's your favorite scary movie? What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, I'll cut out that first one.
Okay, come on.
I'm just kidding. So yeah, like, what is your favorite scary movie? And like, what was the first one that you saw? Tell us like what feelings that you get when watching scary movies. Like, why do you like them? Maybe you don't like them. Maybe you're like, man, I'm listening to this podcast, but I hate scary movies. Which I don't know why you're here.
Yeah, why are you here?
But we love you anyway.
We love you anyway, but
but yeah, so like email us at contactspiritedspirits@gmail.com with your answer. Like, let us know what your favorite scary movie is.
And of course, we're always welcome to hear your stories. If you've had an experience, if you have had something weird happen, we would love to hear from you. We're still trying to collect listener stories because I really want to include some of those on the podcast, because I really feel like I think those are so genuine. I think it's so good to hear from other people about what they've experienced. So please contact us.
And also, if you are feeling apprehensive about that, we don't have to share your name either.
Yeah, we can do it anonymously.
So that's the other thing too. But also, tell your family and friends about our podcast. Follow us on Instagram.
Contact.
Nope.
Wait, Spirited_spirits_podcast.
There you go.
Thank you.
And we're not really doing a lot with Twitter nowadays.
X.
Or X. Oh my god.
Was it like a porn?
Yeah. Like, I need
XX.
I need to go like wash my hands now that I said X. Well, because like I feel dirty saying, "Hey, I'm on X." Like it's the weirdest thing. Elon Musk is terrible.
Oh, God,
anyway,
love him.
So so we're also on Threads. Are we on Threads now?
Yeah, but yeah,
we're not doing that a lot.
We're not doing a whole lot of Threads.
Anyway,
we need to do more with that. Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, so we hope you have a good night, and we hope you continue to listen as we talk
Sip
about
on spirits while we talk about spirits.
Have a good night.
Good night.